Imani didn't know the man who stepped into her delivery room had been sending her $8,000 every month, money that never reached her. She didn't know almost $300,000 had vanished behind her back. She didn't know her life as a new mother was about to collide with a betrayal so deep it would rewrite everything she believed about love, loyalty, and family. The truth didn't wait for her to heal. It walked straight into her room wearing an expensive suit and a colder expression than she'd ever seen. But before truth arrived, Imani's world was quiet. She opened her eyes slowly, still dazed from hours of labor. Her body was heavy and sore, but when she turned her head, all pain melted into something warm and wordless. Her baby was lying beside her, wrapped in a simple cream-colored blanket she bought on clearance months ago. His tiny chest rose and fell softly. His small lips pursed, as if he was still trying to understand the world he had entered just hours earlier. Imani reached out with trembling fingers and touched his cheek. His skin was soft, warm, and perfect. She let out a small breath that felt like a prayer she didn't know she had said. Her life had been hard lately, money tight, hours long, nights sleepless, but this moment felt like light in a tunnel she thought would never end. The room around her wasn't fancy. 3 beds, 2 empty, 1 ceiling fan that squeaked every few seconds, and windows painted shut after years of neglect. She chose this shared room on purpose. She didn't want to put pressure on Darius or his mother, Ms. Bernice, who always reminded her that not everything needs to be fancy. Imani pulled the blanket tighter around herself. She remembered working late into the night during pregnancy, designing logos, editing flyers, sketching until her fingers cramped, just so her baby could have diapers, wipes, and a few baby onesies she secretly bought when Bernice was watching. She remembered skipping her cravings because she didn't want to ask for money. She remembered taking on more work because she didn't want to be a burden. She wanted to be a mother her child could be proud of. A nurse entered with a friendly smile and checked her vitals. "You're healing well, Ms. Imani. You are strong. Your son is perfectly healthy." Imani smiled faintly. "Thank you." The nurse gestured to the baby. "Your husband said you handled everything yourself, appointments, paperwork, even some of the supplies. That's impressive. Not every new mother is that prepared." Imani nodded softly. She had been prepared because she didn't have a choice. The nurse left, and Imani glanced at the door, expecting Darius or Bernice. But instead, the air in the room shifted, heavily, sharply, as the door opened once more. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped inside, and the room seemed to shrink around him. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone used to being obeyed. His dark skin contrasted with his silver beard, and his eyes, sharp, controlled, unreadable, locked onto her immediately. Imani froze. Her breath caught. "Dad." Mr. Elijah Monroe stood just inside the doorway, not moving farther, simply studying her. His presence swallowed the entire room. Behind him, his assistant carried a massive basket stuffed with expensive baby care items Imani had only ever seen online. For a moment, she didn't know how to breathe. She hadn't seen her father in years. Their last conversation ended in anger when she chose Darius instead of the future her father imagined for her. They drifted apart, slowly, painfully, until silence felt normal. Yet here he was. He stepped closer to the bassinet first. His hand hovered above the baby for a moment, then gently touched the boy's tiny hand. His hardened features softened briefly. Then his eyes landed on the blanket. He lifted the edge between his fingers. "This," he said quietly, "is what you wrapped him in?" Imani swallowed. "It's clean, Dad. It's warm." "Is it thrifted?" "Yes, but it's good quality. I washed it well." The sound wasn't judgment. It was concern mixed with something darker. His gaze drifted across the room, the squeaky fan, the worn curtain, the cracked tiles, then back to her face. "Did you choose this room?" "It was affordable." He stared for one agonizing second longer, then said, "Was the money not enough?" Imani blinked. "What money?" His jaw clenched. "The $8,000 I sent you every month." She stared at him, stunned. She almost laughed, but not because it was funny, because it was impossible. Dad, you never sent me anything. He frowned, genuinely confused. Imani, I set up automatic transfers years ago. Nothing ever came to me. She felt the air thinning, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Dad, I swear I never saw a cent. Before he could answer, loud laughter echoed from the hallway. The door swung open and Darius stepped inside, grinning, holding multiple shopping bags with bold luxury logos. Right behind him came Bernice, dressed in her usual bright colors, carrying even more bags. They were laughing until they saw Elijah Monroe. The laughter died instantly. Darius froze so hard the bags nearly slipped from his hands. Bernice stopped mid-step, her eyes going wide with panic. Imani felt a chill crawl down her arms. Elijah's gaze slowly dropped to the bags in their hands. He didn't yell. He didn't repeat himself. He simply asked, with a voice cold enough to crack glass, "You went shopping?" Bernice stuttered. "And Mr. Monroe? We were just running errands for a friend." "Luxury errands?" he asked without looking at her. Darius swallowed hard. "Sir, these aren't ours. We were just—" "You eat at designer stores now," Elijah said quietly, dangerously. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Suffocating. "Let's make this simple," he said. His tone didn't rise. It dropped, turning colder. "Where is the money?" Bernice blinked rapidly. "What money, sir?" "The money I sent. $8,000. Every month. For 3 years." Bernice let out an exaggerated gasp. 8,000. "Sir, we've never seen money like that. Imani spends too much. She drained Darius dry during her pregnancy." "That's a lie." Imani snapped. Bernice pushed louder. "She always wanted fancy foods. I barely ate some nights." Bernice put a hand dramatically on her chest. "She bought designer maternity clothes." Imani sat up straighter. "I bought thrift store clothes." Elijah finally turned fully toward them. His voice dropped low, too low. "Enough." The air stilled. Even the squeaky fan seemed to pause. He stepped closer to Darius. "Look at me," Elijah said. "You're her husband. So tell me, where is the money?" Darius trembled. "Sir, I used it for bills." "Bills." Elijah stepped so close Darius backed into the wall. "Your rent is $800. You drive a car above your pay grade. And your mother," he glanced at the bags, "has been shopping like she won the lottery." Bernice's lip quivered. "We manage our money." "No," Elijah said. "You stole my daughter's dignity while spending what was meant to protect her." Imani felt something shift inside her. Not heartbreak. Not anger. Something deeper. They didn't just steal money. They stole years of her life, her comfort, her health, her peace. Darius opened his mouth again. "Sir, please." "Don't plead," Elijah said, his expression made of stone. "You had 8,000 every single month, while my daughter worked late nights pregnant, while she skipped meals, while she came to the hospital with a thrifted blanket." Imani felt tears sliding down her cheeks, but they weren't soft. They were sharp, hot, and full of truth she should have seen sooner. Darius tried one last time. "Sir, please, it's a misunderstanding." Elijah raised one eyebrow. Just one. A misunderstanding that cost nearly $300,000? The room fell silent. Only Imani's heartbeat moved. Imani looked at her father, then at her baby, then at the man she once loved. She felt something heavy fall away inside her, a final illusion breaking clean in half. And she realized she wasn't the same woman she had been yesterday. What came next would change everything. Imani thought childbirth would be the hardest day of her life, until she discovered just how deep the betrayal ran. And her father wasn't done, because the truth he came to reveal next wouldn't just expose a lie. It would destroy her marriage forever. For a long moment, the room was trapped in a silence that felt thick, suffocating, impossible to break. Imani sat against the pillows, her newborn sleeping beside her, unaware of the storm building just inches away. Darius stood frozen near the door, gripping his shopping bags like lifelines, and Bernice hovered stiffly behind him, her eyes darting between Imani and Elijah as though searching for an escape route. Elijah didn't move. He simply stood there, shoulders squared, face unreadable. The kind of quiet that came from someone who knew exactly what he was about to do, and precisely how devastating it would be. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled, and sharp enough to cut through steel. "I'm going to ask you one more time," he said, looking at Imani. "You never received a single dollar of the money I sent." "No," she whispered. "I never got anything." He nodded once. A slow, deliberate nod. The kind of nod people give right before the truth comes out and changes everything. Then he turned to Darius. "Show me your bank transactions," he said. "All of them." Bernice snapped instantly. "Now wait just a minute. That sounds like an accusation. Money transfers get mixed up every day. Banks lose things, systems glitch. Let's not turn a misunderstanding into drama." "I wasn't speaking to you," Elijah said coldly. Bernice's mouth shut so quickly her teeth clicked. Darius swallowed. "Sir, I don't have my phone on me." Elijah's eyes narrowed. "It's in your pocket." Darius froze. He instinctively placed a hand over his pocket, as if Elijah could somehow see straight through fabric. Slowly, reluctantly, Darius pulled the phone out and unlocked it. Elijah extended his hand. "Give it to me." It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a request. It was a fact. Darius placed the phone in his hand, and Elijah began scrolling. He didn't blink, didn't frown, didn't pause. His face remained expressionless, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. Bernice tried again. "Mr. Monroe, please. You're looking at things without context. Imani told us to manage the money for her. She didn't want stress during the pregnancy. She asked us to." "Stop lying," Elijah said without raising his voice. "You're embarrassing yourself." Bernice flinched as if slapped. Elijah scrolled further, moving through months of transfers. Imani watched him, her stomach twisting tighter and tighter. Her palms were damp. She kept rubbing her thumb against her fingertips just to stop them from shaking. Then Elijah stopped scrolling. He turned the screen toward Imani. "Look." She leaned forward, squinting. Her throat dried instantly. There it was. Line after line. Deposit after deposit. EM support, $8,000. Followed by withdrawals. Then transfers. Then purchases. Designer stores. Spa visits. High-end restaurants. Hotels. Electronics. Her chest tightened, too fast, too much. Her fingers went numb. She almost dropped the phone. Darius opened his mouth. "Sir, please, those labels don't mean." Elijah didn't look at him. "You were given money to protect my daughter," he said calmly. "Instead, you used it to live above your means." Bernice's voice wavered. We were just managing it for her." "You already tried that lie," Elijah said, still not looking at her. Darius took a shaky step forward. "Sir, we used some of it for bills." "Bills?" Elijah repeated, finally looking him dead in the eyes. "You pay bills with Gucci bags now." Darius looked down at the branded bags in his hands. The room grew so quiet it felt like even the air had stopped moving. Elijah handed the phone back to him. "We're not done." He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. Thick, official, heavy. He placed it in Imani's hands. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. Several papers slid out, contracts, bank authorizations, legal memos. One page had a raised gold emblem from a law firm. Imani blinked. "Dad, what is this?" Elijah took a slow breath. 3 years ago, when you told me you were getting married, I took precautions. You didn't know because I hoped you'd never need them." Bernice's eyebrows shot up. "What precautions?" Elijah ignored her completely. Imani flipped to the first page, and her eyebrows pulled together in confusion. "Dad, this says the money was mine. Just mine." "Yes," Elijah said. "Not ours?" not joint.
No.
Bernice gasped, as if it were a crime. Why would you do something like that? Because I didn't trust either of you, Elijah said flatly. And now you've proven me right. Imani's eyes moved to another page. Her heart stuttered. She whispered, Dad, this signature isn't mine. Elijah nodded once. I know. Her breath hitched painfully. The letters of her name were there, but the handwriting was wrong. Sloppy. Rushed. Off balance. Imani felt her stomach roll. Who signed this? The entire room held its breath. Darius looked at Bernice. Bernice looked at Darius. And neither spoke. That silence was an answer. Elijah stepped forward. Not aggressively, just enough to make the walls feel closer. Do you want to admit it, he asked softly, or should I? Bernice sputtered. She gave us permission. Did she give you permission? Elijah interrupted. While she was working late nights pregnant? While she was buying thrift blankets? While she came to the hospital lacking basic prenatal care because she couldn't afford it? Bernice stared at the floor. Darius's lips quivered. Sir, she didn't mean. I said don't lie to me again. The force behind the quiet words made Darius's voice die in his throat. Imani stared at the forged documents, and her chest burned. Her hands shook harder. She pressed one palm against the bed to steady herself, but it didn't help. Her vision blurred. Her father's voice softened when he looked at her. Imani, I already knew something was wrong before I arrived here. She blinked through tears. How? Elijah didn't look at Darius. He looked through him. 2 years ago, he came to my office. Imani's eyes widened, bewildered, disbelieving. Darius's face drained of color so fast he looked like he might faint. Bernice whispered harshly, Darius, tell me he's lying. But Elijah didn't stop. He came asking for money, he said. A large sum. He claimed you were irresponsible, that you didn't know how to manage finances, that you drained his accounts, that you were a burden. The words stabbed deeper than any document. Imani's face crumpled. She gripped the papers so tightly they shook. Elijah's jaw tightened. He told me things about my daughter no man who loves his wife would ever say. Darius's knees buckled. He nearly fell. Elijah stayed calm, dead calm. I refused him. And instead of coming clean to you, he went behind both of us. He forged your signature. He rerouted inheritance funds meant to protect you and this child. Bernice gasped. Darius, you didn't. But the truth was already spread out on the hospital bed. Imani could barely breathe. You told him I was a burden? Darius choked on his own breath. Imani, listen. I was angry that day. Your father was judging me. I said some things I didn't. You said enough, Elijah said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Imani stared at Darius, and something inside her shifted permanently. Something heavy, something she had been holding on to without realizing it, finally cracked. Darius stepped toward her, falling to his knees. Imani, please. I'm sorry. I messed up. Please don't let this be the end. Imani looked at him with stunned, hollow eyes. She barely recognized him. You ruined us. Her voice wasn't loud, but it broke what little remained. Darius let out a shaky sob. Bernice covered her mouth, shaking her head. Elijah stood unmoving, a wall of quiet power behind his daughter. Imani looked down at her newborn son, sleeping peacefully through the storm, and suddenly saw her future with terrifying clarity. This wasn't a moment she could undo. This wasn't a mistake she could forgive. This wasn't a marriage she could save. Her life was changing. Right here. Right now. And nothing was going to stop it. The room didn't feel like a hospital room anymore. It felt like the inside of a cracked shell, everything exposed, everything echoing too loudly. The air was thick, quiet, trembling under the weight of what had just happened. Darius knelt beside Imani's bed, his eyes red, his shoulders shaking. Bernice hovered behind him, gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles whitened. Imani kept her focus on the baby sleeping in the bassinet beside her. His tiny chest rose and fell in soft, even rhythms. His calmness was a cruel contrast to the storm around them. He didn't know that the room had become the graveyard of his parents' marriage. Elijah stood near the foot of the bed, tall, silent, unmoving. A wall of control, a force that kept the room from collapsing inward. Finally, Imani lifted her eyes to Darius. Her voice was quiet, but her words landed with finality. "Daddy didn't ruin this," she whispered. "You did." Darius flinched like he'd been struck. Bernice jumped in before he could respond, her voice high and breathless. "Imani, sweetheart, you're upset. You just gave birth. Your hormones are all over the place. You're not thinking clearly." Imani didn't even look at her. 3 years of theft. Forged documents. Lies to my father. Lies about me. And you want to call that hormones? Bernice opened her mouth, but Elijah's gaze cut to her, and she froze mid-breath. Darius reached for the edge of the bed, trying to stand. His legs trembled beneath him. "Imani, listen to me," he pleaded. "I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll give you everything back. I'll put your name on every account. Just don't throw us away. Please." Imani felt her throat tighten. She wanted to believe parts of him. Wanted to believe that somewhere inside, the man she married still existed. But then she saw the forged signature in her mind. The shopping bags. The bank statements. The memory of her working late into the night while he lived comfortably. She felt a chill run through her. "You already threw us away," she whispered. Bernice pushed forward again, desperate now. "Imani, listen, baby, this is your family. Families work things out. You think rich people like your father don't make mistakes? Huh? You think he never lied? You think he never?" Elijah lifted one hand. Just one. And Bernice fell silent, as if that hand held a command over her very breath. "I wasn't speaking to you," Elijah said. The gentleness in his voice made the threat even colder. Darius looked up at Elijah, tears clinging to his eyelashes. "Sir, please. I'll fix everything. I swear it. I'll get the money back. I'll—" "You already spent it," Elijah said. "On luxury. On ego. On lies." Darius shook his head violently. "No. I can work. I can get it back. I'll get a second job, a third job, whatever she needs." Imani's voice came out flat. "You had 3 years to choose me." Darius froze mid-sentence. Bernice grabbed her son's arm. "Come on, Darius," she hissed. "Begging is beneath you." But Darius shook her off. "No. I'm not walking out like this." His voice cracked as he reached toward Imani again. "I can change." Elijah stepped forward, blocking him completely. "You don't touch her," Elijah said. Darius stopped instantly. "You don't talk over her. You don't guilt her. You don't manipulate her. Not anymore." A tear slid down Darius's cheek. "She's my wife." "No," Elijah said quietly. "She was your opportunity, and you used her." Silence. Complete, awful silence. Then Elijah spoke again, calm, almost polite. "You will leave now." Bernice sputtered. "You can't kick us out." Elijah looked at her, and whatever words, she had died in her throat. He didn't need to say anything else. Bernice tugged hard at Darius's arm. He didn't move at first. He stared at Imani with a shattered expression, eyes begging for something she could no longer offer. "Imani," his voice trembled. "Don't let this be the end." She took a breath. It hurt to take it. It ended a long time ago. I just didn't see it. His face broke. Bernice pulled him harder this time, and he let himself be dragged away. At the doorway, Darius turned back one last time. "I love you," he whispered. Imani looked him in the eyes, and her reply came out like a truth finally freed. "Then you should have acted like it." Bernice jerked him into the hall, and the door shut behind them. The quiet that followed didn't feel peaceful. It felt raw. Imani let out a breath, shaky, uneven, like her body was trying to release a weight too heavy to hold all at once. Elijah moved a chair closer to her bedside and sat down without saying anything. He didn't rush her. He didn't fill the silence. He just stayed. Imani spoke first. I feel stupid. Elijah shook his head slowly. There's nothing stupid about trusting someone you loved. Imani's voice cracked. I worked every night. I was tired, pregnant,
Sick.
and they were living off money that was supposed to protect me. You survived, Elijah said quietly. That makes you stronger than any mistake. She didn't answer.
Couldn't.
She stared at the remaining documents Elijah had given her, the ones listing the accounts she never knew existed. The numbers weren't large, not compared to what had been stolen, but they weren't nothing. And after months of struggling, even seeing 4 digits on paper felt like light cracking through a locked door. Imani's fingers trembled as she traced one of the account numbers. Why is there money left? Elijah leaned back slightly. Because I planned for this possibility. The visible account was bait. Imani blinked at him. I needed to know if the man you married would protect you, Elijah said. Or use you. Her breath caught. When he accessed the visible account, Elijah continued, I knew he was choosing the second option. So I had the lawyers move the rest quietly. Imani stared at him in disbelief. You saved some just for me? Elijah's expression softened. I saved it because I never wanted you to be trapped. A tear slipped down her cheek. Dad. And that's not all, he said gently. Imani's stomach nodded. She braced herself. What now? Elijah clasped his hands together. 2 weeks ago, I got an alert. Someone used your information, your full name, your birth date, even the last 4 digits of your ID, to open a credit line tied to one of the protected accounts. Imani felt the blood drain from her face. Who? You know who. Her breath shuddered. Darius. Elijah nodded once. The attempt was blocked, he said, but he didn't stop. He tried again the next day using a different bank. And again last week. Imani's body reacted before her mind did. Her hands went numb. Her throat felt like it was closing. She pressed her palms against her thighs, but she couldn't stop the trembling. He wasn't done with me, she whispered. Not even after all this. No, Elijah said. He wasn't.
She stared at her baby.
Her son, the small miracle asleep beside her. And her fear transformed into something else, something heavier, something sharper. Resolve. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand.
Her voice steadied.
Dad, I want to leave. I don't want to go back to their house. I don't want to be anywhere near them. Elijah nodded calmly. You won't. I want to go home, she said softly. Elijah's eyes met hers. Do you mean your home or mine? Imani didn't answer immediately. She looked down at her son. His tiny fingers twitched in his sleep, as if reaching for a future he didn't know existed yet. She inhaled, slow but certain. Yours. Elijah's jaw tightened, not in anger, but in something like relief.
Good.
He stood.
Rest.
I'll speak to my attorney first thing in the morning. Imani's eyes lifted. For divorce? For much more than that, Elijah said. His voice remained calm, but something in it carried a promise. They forged documents, stole inheritance, attempted credit fraud. They will answer for every part of it. Imani's breath hitched, but she didn't protest. She didn't defend Darius. She didn't soften her father's resolve. Something in her had changed. There was a knock at the door, and Elijah turned sharply, ready for another confrontation, but it was only the nurse. She stepped in with a gentle smile. Checking on the little one, she said. Then she paused, looking at Imani with eyes that clearly sensed tension. She glanced once toward the door, as if she, too, knew something heavy had been left behind it. You're doing good, sweetheart, the nurse whispered, adjusting the baby's blanket. Better than you think. Imani gave a weak smile. The nurse left as quietly as she'd come. Elijah returned to Imani's side. Try to sleep, he said softly. She settled back against her pillow. The exhaustion hit her all at once, like a wave pulling her under. Tomorrow would bring choices she never expected to face. Tomorrow would bring legal battles she hadn't asked for. Tomorrow, Darius Price would finally learn what it meant to steal from a Monroe. Imani exhaled deeply, her baby breathing quietly beside her.
Tonight, she rested.
Tomorrow, the war would begin. Imani didn't remember falling asleep. She only remembered the weight, emotional, physical, finally giving way. For hours she drifted in and out, her dreams flickering between fear and peace. Every time she stirred, she checked the bassinet, making sure her son was still there, still breathing, still safe. When morning light finally crept through the thin curtain, everything inside her felt raw but strangely clearer. She turned her head and saw the empty space beside the bed where Darius had knelt the night before. The sight made her stomach twist. Just hours ago, a man had been on his knees there, not in worship, but in ruin. The baby stirred, grunting softly, stretching tiny fingers outward. Imani picked him up and held him against her chest. His warmth grounded her. His small, sleepy breath soothed her fraying nerves. For a few minutes, she let herself just be a mother. No betrayal, no fear, no decisions to make. Her father was gone. A brief spike of panic shot through her chest, but then she found a neatly folded note on the bedside table. "I'm speaking with my attorney. I'll be back soon."
Rest.
Dad. Imani let out a slow breath. She stared at the handwriting for a moment, then set the note down carefully. Her eyes burned, but no tears fell this time. She kissed the top of her son's head. "You've got a granddad who doesn't play," she whispered. The door opened. Elijah walked in with the same measured composure he always carried, though his eyes had a new heaviness behind them. The kind that comes from a long night of thinking and an early morning of planning. He put a folder on the chair, took off his jacket, and rolled up his sleeves like he was about to go to work on something that mattered. "How are you feeling?" he asked. Imani looked down at her baby. "Not as broken as yesterday," she said honestly, "but not whole yet." "That's expected," Elijah replied gently. "Healing starts the moment we stop lying to ourselves." Imani swallowed hard. "Did you talk to the attorney?"
"I did," he said.
"He's drawing up documents. But there's more we need to discuss." Her stomach tightened. "More?" "Yes." Elijah took a slow breath. "Before we leave this hospital, we need to set boundaries. For your safety. And for the babies." Imani braced herself. "What kind of boundaries?" Elijah sat down at the edge of the chair, his posture firm but calm. "Darius cannot have access to your hospital room." Imani nodded slowly. "I figured. And he cannot take the baby anywhere without your consent. Not even for a minute." Her breath caught. Would he even try that? Elijah held her gaze. "I don't put anything past a desperate man." Her chest tightened painfully. He reached into the folder he brought and pulled out a document with a hospital's logo. "I've already spoken to security," he said. "They will not allow Darius or Bernice to enter your room without your permission. And I told them you will not be giving that permission." Imani nodded again, the tension easing a little. "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Elijah said. "Protecting you is not a favor. It's my responsibility." Something warm spread in her chest, a feeling she hadn't had in a long time. Safety. Before she could respond, there was movement outside the door. A shadow. A familiar voice. "Imani? Baby, please just talk to me." "Darius." Her heart dropped into her stomach. Elijah rose instantly and stepped in front of her bed, blocking the doorway with his body. The doorknob rattled once. "Imani, please, just 5 minutes," Darius whispered through the small crack in the door. "I'm begging you. I didn't sleep. I haven't eaten. I can't. I just need you to listen." Imani's grip on her son tightened. Elijah didn't open the door. He didn't even move. "You need to step away," Elijah said through the closed door. There was a pause. "Mr. Monroe, please," Darius said, his voice cracking. "I need my wife. I'm losing my mind out here." Imani closed her eyes, her throat tightening. Elijah replied with chilling calm. "You lost your wife when you chose to betray her." Another pause. A shaky breath. Then Darius tried again, more frantic. "Imani, I brought diapers and wipes and baby clothes. I'm trying.
Please.
Let me fix this. Let me see my son." Elijah stepped closer to the door. If you push this door again, I will call security. Silence. Then footsteps, slowly retreating down the hallway. Imani let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her baby stirred in her arms, sensing the tension. Elijah turned back to her. Are you all right? Imani nodded, though her hand shook. He won't give up easily. No, Elijah said. He won't. She swallowed hard. He sounded desperate. He is, Elijah replied. Desperation is dangerous. Which is why we're leaving today. Imani looked up sharply. Today? I just gave birth. Are you sure I can be discharged? Yes, Elijah said. The doctor confirmed it this morning while you slept. You're healthy. The baby is healthy. You're stable. And you will heal better in a safe environment. She rubbed her baby's back. Okay. Elijah stood. I'll start the paperwork. He left the room briefly, and the silence that followed felt big, heavy, but necessary. Imani stared down at her baby, brushing a thumb across his cheek. I'm going to take care of you, she whispered. I promise. When Elijah returned, he wasn't alone. A nurse followed him, kind-eyed, gentle. And behind her, another hospital staff member, a man wearing a badge that read security. Imani's heartbeat quickened. Is something wrong? Elijah shook his head.
No.
I'm just being careful. The security officer stepped forward politely. Miss Price, we've been instructed to escort you safely to the exit when you're ready. Your father has arranged for private wheelchair and secure transport. We'll make sure no unauthorized person approaches you or the baby. Imani blinked. Unauthorized, you mean Darius? The officer didn't confirm, but he didn't need to. The nurse stepped in gently. Don't worry, sweetheart. This is just precaution. Imani nodded slowly, absorbing everything. As she packed the few things she had brought, her phone, charger, the small bag of baby clothes she managed to afford during pregnancy, her father watched her closely, as if making sure she didn't collapse under the weight of the moment. Then the door cracked open again. This time, it wasn't Darius's voice. It was Bernice. She stood in the doorway with an expression that didn't match her usual sharpness. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup smudged, her posture slumped. She looked like someone who had been crying all night and arguing with herself the entire time. Imani, she said softly. Elijah immediately stepped forward, but Imani raised a hand. It's okay. Elijah hesitated, then shifted slightly to the side, staying close. Bernice stepped one foot into the room, then stopped when she saw the security officer. Her voice trembled. I just wanted to say something. Imani's grip on her baby tightened. Go on. I know you hate me, Bernice whispered. Maybe I deserve it, but I didn't mean for things to go this far. I swear it. I wanted to help my son. Imani swallowed. By stealing from me? Bernice's chin shook. I told myself you owed us, she said hoarsely. That the money was really ours because we were the ones who stood by Darius when your father cut him off. I thought if you had that money, you'd leave my son behind. So I convinced myself you were the enemy so I wouldn't feel the guilt. The honesty in that twisted logic made the air feel heavier. Imani stared at her, stunned. You watched me work myself sick while you lived off money meant for me. Bernice covered her mouth, as if to hold back a sob. I know, she whispered. And I'm sorry. I can't take it back. I just hope one day you'll see that I was scared.
Wrong.
But scared. Imani looked at her calmly. You didn't just steal money, she said softly. You stole trust. Bernice's eyes filled with tears. I know.
And I'm sorry.
I just hope someday you can see past this. Imani's voice stayed steady. Someday, maybe, but not today. Bernice bowed her head and stepped out of the room. Elijah exhaled quietly, barely audible. That's more accountability than I expected from her.
Imani nodded.
Me too. A few minutes later, the nurse returned with the discharge papers, walking Imani through everything she needed to know. The baby slept peacefully, unaware that his life was being uprooted before he could even fully open his eyes. Finally, The nurse brought the wheelchair. Imani hesitated. Dad, what if Darius is outside? What if he tries something? Elijah placed a hand on her shoulder. That's why we're leaving with security. You're safe. She nodded and carefully settled into the wheelchair with the baby in her arms. When they finally rolled into the hallway, Imani's heart hammered in her chest. Every shadow felt like Darius. Every sound felt like danger. Security walked beside them. Elijah walked right behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence at her back. They turned a corner. And then she saw him. Darius was standing near the exit, eyes red, face distraught, hands clasped together as if in prayer. When he saw her, he stepped forward instinctively, only to be stopped by security. Sir, you need to stay back. Darius's voice cracked. Imani, please.
Just let me talk to you.
One more time. Just one. Imani didn't look at him, but he kept talking. I'll do anything. Anything. Go with your father. Leave with him. Just don't shut me out of the baby's life. Don't take him from me. Imani felt her throat close. She clutched her son tighter. Elijah stepped forward. You will speak to her through her attorney. Darius shook. Please, please don't do this. I'm his father. Imani finally looked at him. You lost the right to call yourself that, she whispered, when you chose money over us. His face collapsed. Security blocked his path as he tried to step closer. Imani turned away and let them push her through the exit. The sunlight outside was bright and sharp. A black car waited at the curb, Elijah's driver already holding the back door open. Imani was lifted gently into the car with the baby. Elijah sat beside her, shutting the door with a quiet click. As the car pulled away from the hospital, Imani looked out the window. Darius stood on the sidewalk, watching them leave, helpless, broken, small. Imani let out a breath. She wasn't free yet. Not fully. The war was just beginning. Tomorrow, lawyers would speak in her place. Tomorrow, papers would hit his doorstep like a hammer. Tomorrow, Darius Price would learn exactly what it meant to betray someone who finally chose herself.
Tonight, she rested.
Tomorrow, everything he feared would arrive. The car ride from the hospital to Elijah's home felt nothing like the ride there had been days earlier. Back then, she had been exhausted, afraid, and clinging to a hope she didn't realize was dying. Now, the air felt heavier but cleaner, like a storm had torn through her life and left the truth exposed. Imani held her newborn close to her chest. His tiny breaths were steady, warm against her skin. Elijah remained silent in the front seat, but every so often she caught him glancing at the rearview mirror, checking on her without turning around. Protective even when he wasn't speaking. As they entered the private drive leading to his estate, the iron gate slid open with a low, heavy hum. Imani exhaled softly. Safety. She hadn't felt that word in months. The car stopped. Elijah stepped out first, then the driver helped her out with the baby. Her legs still trembled. Her body still felt like the shockwaves of labor hadn't fully left her. But she was determined to walk inside on her own. Inside the house, familiar smells wrapped around her. Sandalwood, cedar, and something she could only describe as home. Every room was warm, tidy, intentional. Nothing loud, nothing unnecessary. Elijah placed a hand on her back as she stepped further in. You're safe now. Imani swallowed, her eyes stinging. Thank you for everything. You don't thank family for doing their job, Elijah said simply. She breathed out, slow and shaky. He led her upstairs to a bedroom she remembered from childhood, but it looked different now. A crib had been placed near the window. Fresh sheets. A rocking chair. A small table stocked with bottles, wipes, blankets. She blinked fast, trying to process all of it. You did all this? Elijah cleared his throat softly. Your baby deserves a proper home. And so do you. Imani's chest tightened until she thought it might break. Tears rose instantly, quiet, uninvited. You've fought alone long enough, Elijah said. Let someone else carry the weight for a while. Imani sank onto the edge of the bed, clutching her baby. She didn't sob. She wasn't even sure she could. The tears slid silently down her cheeks like her body had decided to release what she no longer had room to hold. She whispered, "I'm okay." "You don't have to pretend," Elijah said. "Not here." Imani took a shaky breath and looked toward the crib. She walked to it and laid her son gently inside. For a moment, she just stared. His little hands curled into soft fists. His lashes fluttered. Peace, something she hadn't known in months, slept right in front of her. But when she turned back toward the bed, her eyes drifted to the empty space beside it. Last night, Darius had knelt there. Not from love or humility, but from panic and ruin. The memory twisted her stomach. She gripped the edge of the dresser to steady herself as a flash of anxiety washed through her chest. It felt like someone squeezing her lungs, brief, sharp, but real. She closed her eyes, breathing through it until the pressure eased. Elijah watched her quietly. "You need rest," he said gently. "But before you sleep, there's something important I must tell you." Imani stiffened. "What now?" Elijah's jaw tightened the slightest bit, worry hidden beneath discipline. "Before I picked you up this morning," he said slowly, "Darius came to my gate." Imani froze. "He did what?" "He came to the gate," Elijah repeated. "Demanded to be let in. He told security he was your husband and you were being held against your will." Imani felt her heartbeat spike, sharp, sudden. "Dad, did he get inside?" "No," Elijah said. "But he tried. Hard." "What do you mean hard?" Elijah sighed through his nose. He slammed his fists against the metal so long that his palms were bleeding. Security said he stood there for nearly 15 minutes, shouting your name loud enough for neighbors to come outside. Imani's breath stilled. Her chest tightened again, her fingers curling involuntarily. "He's escalating," Elijah said quietly. "A desperate man is a dangerous man." Imani swallowed hard, her throat dry. "Do you think he'll try for custody?" Elijah hesitated. And that was enough of an answer. Imani's legs weakened, and she lowered herself onto the rocking chair before they gave out. But he didn't even want the baby. He barely cared during the pregnancy. "I was alone the whole time." Elijah met her eyes. "Some men want control more than they want family." Imani stared at her baby, so small, so innocent, and felt something fierce twist inside her. A promise.
A vow.
Elijah placed a folder on the dresser.
Rest.
"In a few hours, your attorney will be here. We move fast." Imani nodded, though her mind felt heavy. He left the room quietly, and she finally lay back. Her body sank into the blankets. Within minutes, she drifted into a heavy sleep, not peaceful, but deep, like her body was reclaiming the rest it had been denied. When she woke, the sun had shifted across the room. Voices floated up from downstairs, quiet, controlled. One belonged to her father. The other was unfamiliar. The attorney. Imani washed her face, changed into clean clothes that had been set out for her, and lifted her baby. Her legs still felt unsteady, but she walked downstairs. Elijah's gaze softened when he saw her. "Feeling better?" "As much as I can," she murmured. The attorney, Ms. Carter, stood when Imani entered. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, efficient. A woman who didn't waste words or kindness. "Imani," she said warmly, taking her hand, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through, but you're not alone in this." Imani nodded. "Thank you." They all sat. Ms. Carter opened a binder. "Your father gave me the documents. The forged signatures. The redirected funds. The credit line attempts.
The theft.
We have strong grounds for divorce and criminal charges." Imani's throat tightened. "But before I outline our plan," Ms. Carter said calmly, "I want to hear from you. Whatever you feel ready to share." Imani told her everything. The pregnancy. The long shifts. The missing money. The endless excuses. The lies. The mother-in-law pressure. The loneliness. The humiliation. The fear. Ms. Carter listened without interrupting, jaw tight, eyes burning. "You've been emotionally and financially abused," she said softly. "This was never your fault." Imani's breath trembled. Now, Ms. Carter said, flipping to a new page, these are our immediate steps. Imani straightened. First, emergency custody filing. Today. Imani's heart skipped. Today?
Yes.
If Darius files first, he could argue for temporary joint custody. We must file before he does. Imani's stomach nodded. I don't want him near my baby unsupervised. And the documentation supports that, Ms. Carter said. Trust me. Elijah nodded once. Second, Ms. Carter continued. Spousal support suspension. He cannot access your finances. Good, Imani whispered. Third, we initiate a criminal review of the forged documents and attempted credit fraud. Imani stiffened. I don't want to put him in jail. Ms. Carter softened. Criminal review isn't the same as prosecution. It gives us leverage. Without it, he'll push harder. Imani nodded, her pulse loud in her ears. And fourth, Ms. Carter said, we request a restraining order. Imani's breath caught. A restraining order? Is that necessary? Yes, Elijah said instantly, before the attorney could answer. Imani looked at him. Dad, he wouldn't hurt me. Elijah's stare sharpened. He already did. The words hit harder than she expected. Ms. Carter looked between them. You have every legal reason to file. And every emotional reason. Imani inhaled shakily. Okay, do it. Ms. Carter nodded and prepared the paperwork. But Elijah cleared his throat. Before anything is filed, she needs to know everything. Imani's stomach dropped. What else? Ms. Carter folded her hands. Your father showed me the credit line attempts, she said. But what he didn't tell you is that there were 3. Imani's chest tightened. 3? Yes, Ms. Carter said. 1 was blocked. 1 was flagged. But the 3rd... She paused. What? Imani whispered. The 3rd progressed far enough to issue a soft inquiry. Which means Darius now knows there's more money he hasn't accessed. Imani's vision blurred. Her breath came fast. He knows, Elijah said gently, that you have resources he can't touch. Imani looked down at her baby. Her hands trembled, but her voice, when it came, was steady. File everything, she said. All of it. Ms. Carter smiled softly, proud. We will. After she left, Elijah walked Imani onto the patio for some air. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees, casting soft gold shadows across the ground. Imani sat on a cushioned bench, rocking her baby. Elijah sat beside her. You're doing the right thing, he said quietly. It doesn't feel right, Imani whispered. Cleaned up, hair brushed, wearing a wrinkled button-down and borrowed slacks. No handcuffs. No scratches from last night. No visible signs of the man who had been slamming his fists against Elijah's gate screaming her name. He looked calm. Too calm. His eyes lifted, slow and heavy, and they landed on her. Not on the baby. On her. Imani froze. Elijah immediately stepped into her line of sight, blocking the view, his voice low. Don't look at him. Imani breathed through her nose until her vision stopped spinning. Ms. Carter guided her to the table on the left. They sat. Elijah placed a protective hand on the baby carrier as if it were instinct. Imani stared down at her folded hands and focused on her baby's steady breaths.
In, out, in, out.
Footsteps approached. Someone sat behind them. Bernice. She didn't speak. She didn't try to touch Imani. She just sat quietly, hands clasped together, eyes red from crying. Imani didn't acknowledge her, but she didn't ask her to leave either. When the bailiff called the courtroom to order, everyone stood. The judge entered, an older black woman with silver braids tied neatly at the back of her head. Her robe swayed as she sat, her gaze sharp, her presence commanding. Good morning, the judge said. Calling case number 22 to 481. Emergency custody petition and restraining order review. Parties, please identify yourselves for the record. Ms. Carter stood. Aisha Carter for the petitioner, Imani Monroe. Imani rose briefly. Imani Monroe. Thank you. Respondent. A lawyer neither Imani nor Elijah had seen stood up. Daniel Price, counsel for Mr. Darius Price. Imani's heart dropped. Darius had a lawyer? Ms. Carter raised an eyebrow. She whispered to Imani, "Don't panic. It changes nothing." The judge flipped through the file. "All right. This is an emergency hearing, so we'll keep things narrow and focused. Ms. Carter, you may proceed." Ms. Carter stood calmly, voice steady, controlled. "Your Honor, we are seeking emergency temporary custody and a temporary restraining order due to ongoing financial abuse, identity forgery, threats, and an attempted forced entry that resulted in police intervention." Imani watched the judge's face, not cold, not warm, but listening carefully. Ms. Carter continued, laying out the timeline. The stolen inheritance payments. The forged signature on the account authorization. The hospital scene and confrontation. The messages demanding access. The gate incident and arrest. Bernice's statement about the threat to take the baby. Every word made Imani's pulse throb in her ears. When Ms. Carter finished, the judge turned to the respondent's table. "Mr. Price?" His lawyer stood. "Your Honor, with all due respect, the petitioner is exaggerating the circumstances. My client denies all allegations of threats or intent to kidnap. He went to the residence only to see his newborn child." Imani clenched her jaw. Darius finally spoke, voice soft, cracked, trembling just enough to seem believable. "Your Honor, I know I made mistakes. I know I messed up. But I love my wife. I love my son. I never threatened to take him. I just wanted to talk to her."
"She blocked me."
I panicked. I was emotional. He glanced toward Imani as if begging her. "I would never hurt them," he whispered. "Never." Imani's chest tightened. Ms. Carter leaned forward. "Your Honor, we have security statements contradicting that." Darius's lawyer slid something across the table. "And we have a statement from Mr. Price's mother who says he was distraught but not dangerous." Bernice stiffened behind Imani. She hadn't provided any statement. She hadn't been asked. Imani swallowed. Bernice lowered her eyes. The judge raised a hand. "We will not debate what is or is not dangerous. I will hear from the petitioner directly." Imani's heart stuttered. "Ms. Monroe," the judge said gently, "please stand." Her legs wobbled as she rose. "Tell me, in your own words, why you are seeking emergency custody and safety restrictions." Imani's mouth felt dry. She looked at her son, his tiny face, his quiet innocence. She inhaled. "When I was pregnant," she began, voice barely above a whisper, "I worked nights to survive. I thought we were struggling. I thought we were in debt. I thought we couldn't afford basic things. But the whole time, money was being sent to help me, and he hid it.
He took it."
I didn't know until my father confronted him at the hospital." She paused, breath shaky. "He forged my name. He lived off money meant for me. He lied about me behind my back. He told people I was irresponsible, so no one would help me. And when I left, he started showing up places. He wouldn't stop calling. He came to my father's gate screaming my name." Her lip trembled. Elijah reached under the table, squeezed her hand. "And yesterday," she whispered, "I learned he said he would take my child if I didn't come back." The judge leaned forward, expression unreadable. "He said I would come running when I realized my son was gone." A quiet ripple went through the courtroom. Imani steadied her voice. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I don't feel safe. He crossed lines that can't be crossed back. And my son, he deserves stability. He deserves safety. I'm just trying to protect him." When she finished, the room felt heavier. The judge nodded slowly. "Thank you, Ms. Monroe." Then she turned her attention to Darius. "Mr. Price, stand." Darius swallowed and rose. The judge's tone sharpened. "You are accused of forgery, misappropriation of funds, unauthorized attempts at access, and threats regarding your child. Why should this court believe you are not a danger?" Darius tried to soften his voice. "Your Honor, I was scared. I thought she was leaving me forever. I didn't think straight. But I swear I never meant to take my son. I would never do that.
His lawyer chimed in.
He is willing to attend counseling, surrender his passport. I never asked for that. Darius snapped under his breath before catching himself. The judge noticed. Her eyes narrowed. Control your temper, Mr. Price. Darius stiffened, jaw tight. The judge sat back. I have heard enough. Imani held her breath. The judge lifted the file, tapping it lightly. Based on testimony, evidence presented, and the current risk level, I am granting the following. The room went silent. Temporary full custody to Ms. Monroe. Imani felt her knees buckle, but Elijah steadied her. The judge continued. Temporary restraining order, granted. Mr. Price is to have no contact with Ms. Monroe, direct or indirect. Darius's face twisted. Supervised visitation only, pending further evaluation. His lawyer whispered urgently, but Darius was glaring at Imani like the world was ending. The judge finished. And Mr. Price will undergo a mandatory psychological evaluation. Darius snapped. This is ridiculous, he shouted. Sit down, the judge ordered. He didn't. He slammed his hands on the table. She's lying. You're all believing her lies. Deputies moved instantly. Elijah rose halfway from his seat, ready. The judge's voice sliced through the chaos. Mr. Price, one more outburst, and I will remand you into custody. Darius froze, chest heaving. He looked at Imani.
Not at the baby.
At her. His eyes were wild, desperate, furious. This isn't over, he whispered. A chill crawled up her spine. Elijah stepped in front of her, blocking the view again like a shield. The judge banged her gavel. Hearing adjourned. People started moving. Papers shuffled. Deputies approached. But Imani stood frozen, staring at the spot where Darius had stood. This isn't over. It echoed in her skull. She clutched her baby, pressing him against her chest, her heart pounding. Elijah touched her back. Don't listen to him. But she already knew. He wasn't threatening her. He was promising something. Something he hadn't done yet. When the courtroom cleared and they stepped into the hallway, Ms. Carter leaned in and whispered, We won today, but we need to stay alert. Men like him don't go quiet. Imani nodded. She didn't feel victorious. She felt watched. As they walked toward the elevator, a security guard hurried over with a message card. He handed it to Ms. Carter. This was turned in for Ms. Monroe. The sender refused to say who it was. Ms. Carter frowned, took the card, opened it. And her face changed. Elijah saw it instantly. What is it? Ms. Carter swallowed. Imani, you need to see this. Imani took the card. One sentence. One chilling sentence written in a familiar hand. If I can't have you, neither can the court. The floor seemed to fall from under her feet. And suddenly she realized the war wasn't just legal anymore. It wasn't just emotional. It was about to become something far more dangerous. And far more personal. The night after the courthouse was the longest night of Imani's life. Even with the judge's temporary ruling, even with Elijah awake in the living room like a guardian, she couldn't sleep. Every sound made her tense. Every dark corner felt like something might move. The card he sent kept repeating in her mind. If I can't have you, neither can the court. That wasn't love. It wasn't heartbreak. It was obsession. When morning light finally pushed through her curtains, Elijah knocked gently and stepped inside. You didn't sleep, he said quietly. Imani shook her head. I couldn't. Elijah took a seat on the edge of the bed. The judge wants to continue the hearing today. Ms. Carter says she read the new evidence first thing this morning. Imani looked down at her baby in her arms. Do you think he'll be there? Yes, Elijah said simply, but not as confident as yesterday. Imani swallowed hard. I'm scared, Dad. I know, Elijah said, his voice steady. But fear can't stop you. It didn't yesterday, and it won't today. His hand rested gently on her shoulder. You're not doing this alone. She nodded, holding her son a little closer. The drive to the courthouse was silent. When they arrived, Miss Carter was already waiting. The judge ordered increased security, she said. No one approaches you unless I say so. No one speaks to you unless I say so. Imani inhaled slowly. Okay. Before they entered the courtroom, Ms. Carter stopped her. He will try something today. He knows he's losing control. Whatever he says, whatever he does, don't react. I'll try, Imani whispered. You won't try, Elijah said. You will stay calm. Let him show himself. They walked into the courtroom. And there he was. Darius. He looked nothing like the man from the first hearing. Wild eyes. Messy hair. Hands fidgeting. Clothing wrinkled.
His leg bouncing.
But the moment he saw Imani walk in with a baby, something dark flickered behind his eyes. Something too close to possession. Elijah stepped forward, blocking the view immediately. Keep your eyes on me, he murmured. Not him. They took their seats. Bernice entered seconds later, looking drained. She sat behind Darius, but didn't speak to him. She didn't even touch him. For once, she seemed afraid too. When the judge walked in, the room snapped to attention.
Good morning, she said.
We are continuing the emergency custody review. She turned sharp eyes toward Darius. Mr. Price, remember, the restraining order remains in effect. Any attempt to approach Ms. Monroe will result in immediate remand. Understood. Darius nodded, but the tension in his jaw said everything. Ms. Carter, the judge said, you may proceed. Ms. Carter stepped forward. Your Honor, my client received a threatening message after yesterday's hearing. The handwriting matches prior writings from Mr. Price. She handed the judge the card. The judge read it out loud. If I can't have you, neither can the court. A heavy silence filled the room. Mr. Price, the judge said, explain. Darius stood, but the moment he opened his mouth, rage broke through the thin mask he tried to wear. She blocked me, he shouted suddenly. She took my son and disappeared. What was I supposed to do? Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even his lawyer looked mortified. Your Honor, the attorney tried to interject. But Darius kept talking. I love my son. I love my wife. Everyone here is making me look crazy. She's the liar. The judge lifted one eyebrow. Mr. Price, control yourself or I will have you removed. But he was past hearing reason. He pointed at Elijah. He turned her against me. He poisoned her. He's been doing it for years. Elijah didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared back, unshaken. Deputies moved closer. Ms. Carter whispered to Imani, this is good. Let him unravel. The judge slammed her gavel. Enough. Sit down. Breathing hard, Darius finally dropped into a seat, but fury radiated off him. The judge turned to Ms. Carter. Continue. Ms. Carter presented everything. The forged authorization. The stolen inheritance payments. The secret bank withdrawals. The attempted account breach 2 weeks earlier. The threatening card. Then she added, and the police report from the gate, Your Honor. Imani kept her hands folded, staring at her baby instead of Darius. The judge reviewed the documents for a long moment before lifting her gaze. Mrs. Price, she said, you were present during the incident at Mr. Monroe's residence. Do you have anything to say? Bernice stood slowly. Her hands trembled. Yes, Your Honor. She looked at Imani, then at Darius, then back at the judge. He told me he was going to take the baby. Darius whipped around. Mom, stop. Bernice continued, tears slipping down her cheeks. He said he'd disappear with him. Said she'd come running when she realized her son was gone. Imani felt Elijah's steady hand press into her shoulder. The judge's face hardened. Thank you, Mrs. Price. Bernice sat down and covered her face, sobbing. The judge turned to Imani. Ms. Monroe, please stand. Imani rose, legs steady this time. In your own words, the judge said softly, tell this court what you want. Imani looked straight ahead. I want my son safe, she said. I want peace. I want stability. I don't want revenge. I want protection. She inhaled deeply. I don't trust him with my child. He's shown me
who he is.
I'm just asking this court to believe what he's shown. The judge nodded slowly. Then she looked at Darius. Mr. Price, stand. He rose, breathing heavily. You are accused of forgery, financial abuse, threats, and violating the restraining order. I didn't. The judge cut him off sharply. You absolutely did. The entire courtroom went still. Finally, the judge lifted her ruling. Based on testimony, evidence, and the respondent's behavior, the court orders the following. Temporary full physical and legal custody to Ms. Monroe. Immediate extension of the restraining order to 2 years. Mr. Price is prohibited from contact of any kind with Ms. Monroe or the minor child. Supervised visitation only through certified centers. Mandatory psychological evaluation for Mr. Price. Forgery evidence to be forwarded to the district attorney's office for criminal review. The room erupted in murmurs. Darius's face collapsed, not with sorrow, but with rage. No, he whispered.
No.
You can't do that. He lunged forward. Deputies grabbed him instantly, restraining him as he thrashed. Imani didn't flinch. She didn't look at him. Elijah blocked her view with his entire body, ready to fight if needed. The judge shouted, Mr. Price, you are in contempt of this court. His lawyer begged him to stop, but he wasn't listening. Imani, he screamed, you did this to me. You can't take him. You can't take my son. The deputies dragged him out as he fought, kicking and shouting. The gavel pounded. Court dismissed. Silence fell like a curtain. Imani exhaled shakily. Her knees softened, but Elijah caught her. It's over, he whispered. It's finally over. Ms. Carter gathered the papers calmly. You were perfect, she said softly.
You didn't react.
He did everything for us. Bernice approached them slowly, broken. Imani,
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I failed you, and I failed him. Imani looked at her gently, but firmly. I hope he gets the help he needs. But I can't carry any of you anymore. Bernice nodded, crying hard. Imani turned away, cradling her son as they walked toward the exit. Outside, the sunlight felt warm for the first time in months. She lifted her face toward it. Her son breathed softly against her chest. Elijah placed a hand between her shoulder blades. You're free now. Imani took a deep, steady breath. No, she said softly. We're free. She kissed her baby's forehead. We're going home. And this time, the word home didn't hurt. It felt like a beginning. A real one. Justice wasn't the end of her story. It was the start of a life she finally chose. For her son. For her peace. For herself.